In the heart of Accra, Ghana, in a sprawling mansion overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, lived 28-year-old Akosua Mensah. To everyone who knew them, she and her husband Kwame represented the perfect power couple. Akosua had inherited her father's gold mining empire, while Kwame managed the day-to-day operations with smooth efficiency and charming confidence. Their cantonment's neighborhood home was the talk of elite society. Imported marble floors, crystal chandeliers from Italy, and a fleet of luxury cars that included a Bentley, 2 Range Rovers, and a custom Mercedes-Benz. Society magazines featured them regularly as Ghana's golden couple, and their charity galas raised millions of cedis for various causes. But behind the gleaming facade, Akosua felt something was fundamentally wrong. Kwame, 35 and devastatingly handsome, had become increasingly distant. Every morning he would kiss her forehead with practiced affection, adjust his expensive kente cloth tie, and announce another urgent business meeting. "Good morning, my love," he said that Tuesday morning, his smile perfect, but somehow hollow. "I have meetings with our Ashanti region partners today. The new mining concessions require immediate attention." Akosua studied his face, searching for the warmth that had once made her heart flutter. "You've been having many meetings lately, Kwame. Maybe I should come with you? Daddy always said I should understand every aspect of the business." Kwame's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Don't stress yourself, darling. These are technical discussions about equipment and geological surveys. Very boring stuff. You should focus on the foundation work. That's where your heart truly lies." Outside, a car horn sounded twice. Their driver, Kofi, was waiting as always. Kofi had worked for the Mensah family for 8 years, ever since Akosua's father, the late Chief Kwame Mensah, had saved his family from financial ruin. The story was one of profound gratitude. Kofi's mother had needed emergency surgery for a brain tumor, but as a 22-year-old university graduate struggling to find employment, he had no money for the operation. By divine providence, he had applied for a driver's position with Chief Mensah on the same day his mother collapsed. Instead of a simple job interview, Chief Mensah heard Kofi's desperate story and immediately paid all medical expenses, funded his mother's complete recovery, and even covered his younger sister's university fees. That act of kindness had bonded Kofi to the family with unshakable loyalty. Even though he held a first-class degree in business administration from the University of Ghana, he had chosen to remain as their driver after Chief Mensah's sudden death, believing that protecting Akosua was his sacred duty to his benefactor's memory. Now 30 years old, tall and quietly handsome with intelligent eyes that noticed everything, Kofi was far more than a simple employee. He was the keeper of family secrets, the silent guardian who remembered every detail, every promise, every suspicious moment. As Kwame settled into the back seat of the Mercedes, Kofi caught Akosua's troubled expression through the rearview mirror. She stood at the mansion's entrance, her silk wrapper fluttering in the morning breeze, watching them leave with obvious anxiety. During the drive, Kofi's trained ears picked up fragments of Kwame's phone conversations, hushed words about transfers, offshore accounts, and most disturbing of all, sweet endearments, clearly not meant for his wife. "Don't worry, sweetheart," Kwame whispered into his phone, thinking the partition gave him privacy. "The final authorization comes through this week. Soon we'll have everything. The mining rights, the international accounts, even the London properties. By next month, we'll be free to start our real life together." Kofi's hands tightened on the steering wheel, but he maintained his professional composure. For months, he had been documenting these conversations, these mysterious destinations that had nothing to do with mining business. Kwame often asked him to stop at luxury apartments in East Legon, always with the same instructions. "Don't mention this to Madam." That evening, Akosua sat in her father's old study, surrounded by company ledgers and financial reports. Something felt wrong with the numbers, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Properties that should have been marked as permanent family assets showed recent transfer activity. Mining concessions that generated millions of cedis annually had been moved to subsidiary companies she didn't recognize. Her father had taught her to trust, but verify, to never ignore warning signs in business or life. "Akosua, my daughter," he used to say, "a smart woman watches not just what people say, but what they do when they think no one is looking." Later that night, as Kwame returned home with his usual cheerful demeanor, Akosua found a hotel keycard that had fallen from his jacket pocket. The Maritime Hotel, dated just 2 days ago. She stared at the small plastic card, her heart racing with questions she wasn't ready to ask aloud. "How was your day, darling?" Kwame asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she quickly hid the keycard. "Fine," she replied, forcing normalcy into her voice. "Just reviewing some of Daddy's old records. Sometimes I miss his guidance so much." Kwame's embrace tightened slightly. "You don't need to burden yourself with all those details, Akosua. That's why I'm here, to handle the complicated business matters so you can focus on the things that truly matter to you." But as she lay awake that night, listening to Kwame's peaceful breathing beside her, Akosua realized that the things that truly mattered to her included understanding exactly what was happening to her father's legacy. The next morning brought another early departure, another set of mysterious meetings. As Kofi drove Kwame through Accra's busy traffic, he noticed they were heading toward a part of town that had nothing to do with gold mining or legitimate business ventures. And in her father's study, Akosua made a decision that would change everything. She would start asking the questions she had been avoiding, even if the answers destroyed the perfect life everyone believed she was living. The mansion that had once felt like a sanctuary was beginning to feel like a beautiful prison. And Akosua Mensah was ready to find out who held the keys. The perfect marriage is cracking, and dark secrets are about to surface. What do you think Akosua will discover about her husband's mysterious meetings? Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was wrong despite everything looking perfect on the outside? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you're ready to dive deep into this web of deception, and don't forget to subscribe, because next chapter reveals the shocking kiss that changes everything. Hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens when loyalty collides with love. 3 days had passed since Akosua found the hotel keycard, and each day her suspicions grew stronger. She began paying closer attention to Kwame's patterns, his phone calls, his subtle changes in behavior. The man who once shared every business decision with her now spoke in vague generalities about progress and developments. That Thursday afternoon, while Kwame was supposedly meeting with mining engineers in Kumasi, Akosua discovered something that made her blood run cold. Hidden in his home office, behind a false back in his desk drawer, she found transfer documents showing the systematic movement of her father's assets into offshore accounts she had never authorized. The papers revealed a pattern of deception spanning months. Mining concessions quietly transferred to shell companies. International investment accounts emptied and rerouted. Even their London property deeds showing pending ownership changes. Her father's life's work was being stolen piece by piece, all bearing her forged signature. When Kofi returned from his latest mysterious driving assignment, he found Akosua in the study, surrounded by damning evidence, tears streaming down her face. "Madam," he said quietly, his voice filled with concern. "Are you all right?" Akosua looked up at him, this man who had served her family with unwavering loyalty, and saw something she had never noticed before: intelligence, compassion, and a protective strength that went far beyond his role as an employee. "Kofi," she whispered, I think Kwame is stealing everything my father built." Kofi's jaw tightened. For months he had watched, listened, and documented, waiting for the right moment to speak. But seeing Akosua's devastation, knowing she was finally ready to hear the truth, something inside him snapped. Acting on pure instinct, driven by years of suppressed feelings and protective fury, he stepped forward and kissed her. The kiss was desperate, urgent, filled with all the words he had never been able to speak. For a moment, Akosua was too shocked to react. Then she pushed him away, her eyes blazing with confusion and anger. "Kofi!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the study. "What do you think you're doing? How dare you take advantage of me when I'm vulnerable?" "I'm sorry, madam," he said quickly, his chest heaving with emotion. "Please forgive me. But I couldn't watch you suffer in silence any longer. I had to get your attention, had to make you listen to what I've been trying to tell you." "Listen to what?" she demanded, her hands shaking with rage and betrayal. "You kissed me without permission, Kofi. You're my driver. Do you want me to call my husband and have you thrown out this minute?" Kofi took a deep breath, his voice urgent with desperation. "Madam, please, I know what I did was wrong, but your husband, he's not who you think he is. I've driven him to hotels, to luxury apartments in East Legon. He's with another woman, and they're planning to take everything from you." Akosua's face went pale. She staggered backward, gripping the edge of her father's mahogany desk. "Do you realize what you're saying? Those are serious accusations against my husband." "I wouldn't say it if it weren't true," Kofi replied firmly. "For months, I've been documenting his activities, recording his phone calls, watching him destroy your father's legacy piece by piece. That kiss, it was wrong, but it was the only way I could think to make you stop and really listen to me." The room fell silent, except for the sound of Akosua's ragged breathing. She stared at Kofi, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Not just as her employee, but as a man who had been carrying an enormous burden of knowledge and loyalty. "If this is true," she whispered, "if what you're saying about Kwame is real, then show me proof. Solid, undeniable proof." Kofi nodded solemnly. "I have recordings, photographs, documents, everything you need to see the truth. But madam, you must be prepared for what you'll discover. Once you know, there's no going back to the innocent trust you had before." Akosua's eyes hardened with determination. "I stopped being innocent the moment I found forged signatures on my father's property transfers. Show me everything, Kofi. Every single piece of evidence." Over the next hour, Kofi presented a devastating portfolio of betrayal. Phone recordings of Kwame discussing eliminating obstacles and ensuring permanent access to the mining fortune. Photographs of him entering and leaving a luxury apartment where a woman named Ama lived, a woman who wore jewelry identical to pieces Kwame had supposedly bought exclusively for Akosua. Bank statements showing systematic theft from family accounts, legal documents prepared for Akosua's signature that would transfer complete control of the mining empire to Kwame in the event of her incapacitation or death. "My God," Akosua breathed, her voice barely audible. "He's been planning to kill me?" "The documents suggest that if you became too suspicious, or tried to stop the asset transfers, they had contingency plans, Kofi said gently. I think that's why I kissed you, madam. I was desperate to wake you up before it was too late. Tears ran down Akosua's face, but they were no longer tears of confusion. They were tears of rage, betrayal, and dawning understanding. How long have you known about this, Kofi? I started suspecting things 6 months ago. I've been gathering evidence for 3 months, waiting for the right moment to tell you. I promised your father I would protect you. And I couldn't let Kwame destroy everything Chief Mensa worked for. Akosua looked at this man who had risked everything, his job, his security, even his dignity, to save her from a husband who was planning her destruction. The kiss that had seemed so inappropriate minutes ago now felt like a desperate act of loyalty and protection. I need more than suspicion and recordings, she said finally. I need to see this other woman with my own eyes. I need proof that will stand up in court. Kofi nodded. Tomorrow, when he thinks you're at your foundation meeting, we can follow him. But madam, once you see the truth, you'll have to decide what to do with it. Kwame is dangerous, and he won't give up the mining fortune without a fight. As evening approached and they heard Kwame's car returning, Akosua quickly hid all the evidence. She would have to face her husband tonight, knowing he was a stranger who had been planning her death while sleeping beside her. The perfect marriage she thought she had was revealed to be the perfect trap. And tomorrow she would have to begin the fight for her life, her father's legacy, and the truth that could destroy the man she had loved and trusted above all others. The kiss that exposed everything. Can you believe Kofi's desperate attempt to save Akosua's life? What would you do if you discovered your spouse was planning to steal everything and possibly harm you? The evidence is overwhelming, but tomorrow's confrontation will be even more shocking. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Kofi right to kiss her to get her attention? Smash that like button if you're on the edge of your seat, and subscribe, because next chapter reveals the face-to-face encounter with the other woman that will leave you speechless. Hit that notification bell. The next morning, Akosua sat at her dressing table, applying makeup with trembling hands. In a few hours, she would come face-to-face with the reality of her husband's betrayal. Kofi had arranged everything carefully. They would follow Kwame to his mysterious apartment, finally putting a face to the woman who was helping him steal her father's legacy. "Good morning, my love," Kwame said, entering their bedroom with his usual charm. He was dressed in an expensive suit, his gold watch catching the morning light. "You look beautiful today. Ready for your foundation meeting?" Akosua forced a smile, her heart racing with the knowledge of what lay ahead. "Yes, we're reviewing proposals for the new scholarship program. What about you? More mining consultations?" "Always working to expand your father's vision," he replied smoothly, kissing her forehead. "Don't wait up for me tonight, darling. These negotiations with the international investors might run very late." After Kwame left, Akosua changed into simple jeans and a head wrap, disguising herself as much as possible. Kofi was waiting with an unmarked car he had borrowed, his expression serious but determined. "Are you ready for this, madam?" he asked as they began following Kwame's Mercedes through Accra's busy streets. "I need to see it with my own eyes," Akosua replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I need to understand exactly who I married and what he's planned for my future." They followed Kwame to an upscale apartment complex in Airport residential area, watching as he used his own key to enter a luxurious ground-floor unit. Through carefully positioned windows, they could see him embracing a stunning woman with long braids and expensive clothes. That's Amma, Kofi said quietly. I've driven him here at least 20 times in the past 3 months. Akosua studied the woman who was helping destroy her life. Amma was beautiful, confident, and wearing jewelry that looked suspiciously familiar. We need to get inside that apartment, Akosua said suddenly. I need to see what evidence they're keeping there. Madam, that's very dangerous, Kofi protested. If they find us, then we make sure they don't find us, Akosua interrupted with newfound determination. We wait until they leave, then we get inside. I want to see exactly how they've been living off my father's money. 2 hours later, they watched Kwame and Amma leave in his Mercedes, apparently heading to lunch. Kofi used skills he had learned during his university years working part-time security to carefully open the apartment lock. Inside, Akosua's worst fears were confirmed and exceeded. The apartment was furnished with expensive items that she recognized, pieces that Kwame claimed had been stolen from their home, artwork that was supposedly being cleaned and restored, and, most devastating of all, her father's personal collection of gold artifacts that Kwame had said were safely stored in the bank. But the cruelest discovery was in the bedroom. Jewelry identical to pieces Kwame had given Akosua as unique anniversary and birthday gifts. Every romantic gesture, every special present had been duplicated for his mistress. He never loved me at all, Akosua whispered, holding up a necklace exactly like the one she had treasured as a symbol of their love. Every gift, every moment, it was all calculated lies. Kofi stood beside her, his presence steady and protective. Madam, I'm so sorry you have to see this, but now you know the truth. Now you can fight back. They took photographs of everything, documenting the stolen items and the evidence of systematic deception. But as they prepared to leave, they heard voices in the hallway. Kwame and Amma returning early from their lunch. Quick, Kofi whispered, pulling Akosua toward the bedroom. We need to hide until they leave again. They concealed themselves in the walk-in closet just as the front door opened. Through the slightly cracked closet door, they could hear every word of the conversation that would change Akosua's life forever. The final transfer should complete tomorrow, Kwame was saying, his voice filled with satisfaction. 5 million cedis moved to the Cayman account, and the London properties will be in our names by Friday. What about Akosua? Amma asked. She's been asking more questions lately. Your housekeeper mentioned she was going through files in her father's study. Kwame's laughter was cold and calculating. Akosua is exactly what I married, a rich, naive woman who inherited more money than she could ever understand. She trusts me completely. Even if she starts to suspect something, she's too weak to do anything about it. But what if she discovers the truth? Amma pressed. What if she tries to stop the transfers or goes to the authorities? There was a pause, and when Kwame spoke again, his voice carried a menace that made Akosua's blood freeze. If Akosua becomes a problem, she'll have an unfortunate accident, a car crash, maybe, or a tragic slip at the swimming pool. Very sad, very believable. As her grieving husband, I'll inherit everything immediately, and we can move to London without any complications. Akosua pressed her hand over her mouth to prevent herself from gasping aloud. Kofi's arm tightened protectively around her shoulders, his own body tense with rage at hearing her life discussed so casually. You really think you can get away with murder? Amma asked, sounding excited rather than horrified. Sweetheart, I've been planning this for 2 years. Every document is prepared. Every authority has been subtly bribed or convinced of my grief and competence. By the time anyone asks questions, we'll be living in our London mansion, enjoying the wealth that should have been mine from the moment I married into the Mensa family. They heard movement, kissing, the clink of wine glasses in a toast to their successful criminal conspiracy. "To the beautiful, stupid Akosua," Kwame said mockingly, "who made all this possible by falling in love with a man who saw her as nothing more than a pathway to her father's fortune." Hidden in the closet, Akosua felt her world complete its collapse. The man she had loved, trusted, and shared her bed with for 3 years had never seen her as anything more than a means to wealth. Worse, he was actively planning her death. When Kwame and Ama finally left for what they described as a celebration dinner, Kofi and Akosua crept out of the apartment, both shaken by what they had witnessed. "Now you know everything," Kofi said quietly as they sat in the car. "He's not just stealing from you. He's planning to kill you and take everything your father built." Akosua's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Then we stop him. We gather all the evidence we can, and we make sure he faces justice for what he's planned." "It won't be easy," Kofi warned. "He has connections, money, and no conscience. This will be the fight of your life." Akosua looked at the man who had risked everything to save her, who had seen the truth when she was blind to it, who had protected her even when it meant crossing dangerous lines. "Then I'm glad I won't be fighting alone," she said. "That kiss you gave me, Kofi, it wasn't just inappropriate. It was the moment you woke me up to save my life. The evidence is overwhelming, and the death threats are real." Akosua's husband isn't just a cheater, he's a cold-blooded killer planning her murder. Can you believe the level of betrayal and calculation? What would you do if you overheard your spouse planning your death? The fight for justice is about to begin, and it's going to be epic. Smash that like button if you're ready to see Akosua fight back, and subscribe because next chapter reveals the trap that will expose everything. Hit that notification bell. The confrontation that follows will leave you speechless. That evening, Akosua sat across from Kwame at their elegant dining table, every fiber of her being screaming with the knowledge of his deadly plans. She watched him cut his grilled tilapia with precise movements, the same hands that had caressed her face, now planning her destruction. "You seem quiet tonight, darling," Kwame observed, his voice carrying that familiar note of false concern. "Is everything all right with the foundation work?" Akosua forced herself to smile, though inside she was calculating every word. "Actually, I've been thinking about Daddy's private accounts. You know, the ones he mentioned before he died? I think it's time I took a more active role in managing them." Kwame's fork paused midway to his mouth, his eyes sharpened with interest, though he tried to mask it with loving concern. "Private accounts? You never mentioned those before, sweetheart." "Oh, I probably forgot in all the grief after losing Daddy. But they're substantial, about 8 million cedis in offshore investments, plus some London properties I inherited separately." Akosua watched Kwame's reaction carefully. "Maybe you could help me figure out what to do with them?" The predatory gleam in Kwame's eyes was unmistakable. "Of course, my love. That's exactly what I'm here for. We should definitely consolidate those accounts with our other holdings for better management." Later that night, as Kwame thought she was sleeping, Akosua heard him making hushed phone calls from his study. She crept silently to the door, a recording device Kofi had given her hidden in her palm. "Ama, you won't believe this," Kwame whispered excitedly. "She just told me about another 8 million cedis I didn't know about, plus London properties. We hit the jackpot." Through the door, Akosua could hear Ama's voice, tinny but audible through the phone speaker. How do we get access to those accounts? Simple. I convince her to sign transfer documents, just like I did with all the other assets. But this time, we move faster. Once those accounts are emptied, we accelerate our timeline for her accident. Akosua's blood ran cold, but she kept recording. How fast are we talking? Amma asked. Kwame's voice dropped to a whisper that carried the chill of death. Next week. I've already contacted our friend at the police department. Car accident on the Tama Highway. Very tragic. Very believable. The grieving husband inherits everything, and by the time any investigation starts, we're already in London. What about that driver of hers? He's always watching you. Kofi. He's just an uneducated driver. Once Akosua is gone, I'll fire him immediately. He'll have no proof of anything, and no one will believe a servant's word against a respected businessman. The recording device captured every cold, calculated word. When Kwame finally ended his call, Akosua slipped back to their bedroom, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and fury. The next morning, she met with Kofi in her father's study, playing back the recording that proved everything. He's planning to kill me next week, she said, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what she was saying. We have maybe 7 days to stop him. Kofi's face hardened with protective rage. Madam, we need to go to the police immediately. This recording proves everything. No, Akosua said firmly. He mentioned having a friend in the police department. We don't know who we can trust. We need to be smarter than that. She stood up, pacing her father's study with newfound determination. Kwame thinks I'm weak and naive. He thinks I'll sign anything he puts in front of me. Well, let's give him exactly what he expects, but with a twist he'll never see coming. What do you mean? Kofi asked. We're going to set a trap. I'm going to tell him I'm ready to sign over those fictional accounts to him. But instead of transfer documents, I'm going to sign his confession. Over the next 2 days, Akosua worked with a trusted lawyer from her father's old firm, someone who had known Chief Mensa personally and could be trusted completely. Together, they prepared documents that looked like account transfers, but were actually detailed confessions of fraud, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. Meanwhile, Kofi arranged for discreet surveillance equipment throughout the house and contacted a few honest police officers who had worked directly with Chief Mensa during his lifetime. On Thursday evening, Akosua told Kwame she was ready to consolidate all her accounts under his management. I've been thinking about what you said, darling. You're right that I should focus on the foundation work and let you handle the complicated financial matters. I trust you completely. Kwame's eyes lit up with greedy satisfaction. That's very wise, sweetheart. I'll have the documents prepared by tomorrow evening. Just a few signatures. And everything will be properly organized. Friday night arrived with the weight of Judgment Day. Kwame had prepared what he believed were transfer documents, but Akosua had secretly replaced them with the confession papers that looked identical. Here we are, Kwame said warmly, spreading the papers across the dining table. Just sign where I've marked, and all your father's assets will be properly protected. Hidden cameras captured every moment as Akosua carefully read each document. Documents that detailed every crime Kwame had committed, every plan he had made, every theft he had orchestrated. This seems very thorough, she said calmly. You've thought of everything, haven't you, Kwame? I always think of everything when it comes to protecting you and your father's legacy, he replied, his voice smooth with deception. Akosua signed each paper carefully, her signature legally binding him to a full confession of his crimes. There, she said, setting down the pen. I feel so much better knowing everything is in your capable hands. Kwame gathered the papers eagerly, not bothering to read what he thought he already knew. "You've made the right decision, darling. Now you can focus on the things that truly matter to you." "Oh, I intend to," Akosua replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. At that moment, the dining room doors opened and 6 police officers entered, led by Chief Inspector Asante, one of her father's old friends. "Mr. Kwame Mensah," Inspector Asante announced formally, "you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder, and theft of assets belonging to the Mensah Mining Corporation." Kwame's face went white with shock. "What? This is impossible! Akosua, tell them there's been a mistake." "No mistake," Akosua said, standing tall with newfound strength. "You just signed a full confession to every crime you've committed against my family. Every theft, every forgery, every plan to kill me, it's all documented in your own signature." "You tricked me!" Kwame snarled, his charming mask finally slipping away to reveal the monster underneath. "I learned from the best," Akosua replied calmly. "You taught me never to trust appearances, never to believe sweet words without examining the actions behind them." As the officers handcuffed Kwame, he looked at her with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've done. I have friends, connections. I'll be free in days. And then nothing," Inspector Asante interrupted. "We also arrested Ama this afternoon, along with your corrupt contact in the police department. Your entire network is finished." As Kwame was led away, still protesting and threatening, Akosua felt a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying finally lift from her shoulders. Kofi appeared at her side, his presence steady and protective as always. "It's over, madam. You're safe now." "No," Akosua corrected, looking at the man who had risked everything to save her life. "Now it begins. Now I rebuild what he tried to destroy. And I do it with people I can actually trust." Justice served with a brilliant trap. Can you believe how Akosua turned the tables on her would-be killer? The confession signature was genius. What did you think of Kwame's final desperate threats? Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting criminals destroy themselves. Smash that like button if you're cheering for Akosua's victory, and subscribe because next chapter reveals the beautiful new beginning that grows from the ashes of betrayal. Hit that notification bell. The transformation that follows will give you hope in love and justice. 6 months after Kwame's arrest, Akosua stood in the same study where her journey toward truth had begun, but everything about her had changed. The terrified, trusting woman who had once signed papers without question had been replaced by a confident leader who now ran Mensah Mining Corporation with the wisdom her father had always hoped she would develop. The legal proceedings had been swift and decisive. Kwame's signed confession, combined with the evidence Kofi had gathered and the recordings Akosua had made, left no room for doubt. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. Ama received 15 years as his accomplice, and the corrupt police officer was dismissed and imprisoned. All of Chief Mensah's stolen assets were recovered and returned to their rightful place in the family trust. The offshore accounts Kwame had emptied were refilled through legal action against his international accomplices, and the London properties he had attempted to transfer were secured back under Akosua's name. But the most significant change wasn't financial, it was personal. Kofi no longer wore the uniform of a driver. After the trial, Akosua had insisted he take his rightful place in the company, using his first-class degree in business administration to become her chief operations officer. The transition wasn't just professional, it was a recognition of the intelligence, loyalty, and protective strength he had always possessed. The quarterly mining reports show record production, Kofi said, entering the study with a tablet full of business data. At 31, his quiet confidence had blossomed into natural leadership, and his new position suited him perfectly. "Daddy would be proud," Akosua replied, smiling as she looked up from her own reports. At 29, she had grown into the woman her father had always believed she could become, strong, discerning, and capable of protecting the legacy he had built. Their working relationship had evolved slowly and naturally over the months following Kwame's arrest. The inappropriate kiss that had once seemed like a violation now felt like the desperate act of a man trying to save the woman he loved from destruction she couldn't see. "Akosua," Kofi said quietly, using her first name as she had requested months ago. "There's something I need to tell you." She looked up, noting the serious tone in his voice. "What is it?" "I've been offered a position with Golden Star Mining. They want me to head their new expansion into the northern region. It's a significant opportunity, and the salary they're offering is substantial." Akosua's heart stopped. After everything they had been through together, after building this new foundation of trust and partnership, was he planning to leave? "And?" she asked carefully, trying to keep her voice neutral. Kofi stepped closer, his eyes holding hers with intensity. "And I turned it down immediately. Not because of loyalty to your father's memory, not because of duty or obligation. I turned it down because I'm in love with you, Akosua, and I have been for years." The words hung in the air between them, carrying all the weight of their shared journey from employer and employee to partners in both business and the fight for justice. Akosua felt her heart racing, but this time not with fear or betrayal, with the possibility of something real and honest. "Kofi," she said softly, "that kiss 6 months ago, it saved my life in more ways than one. It woke me up to the truth about Kwame, but it also made me see you clearly for the first time." She stood up, moving closer to him. "You could have taken that job offer and started a new life anywhere. You could have walked away after Kwame was arrested. But you stayed, not just as my employee, but as my partner in rebuilding everything my father worked for." "I stayed because I love you," Kofi said simply. "Not the heiress, not the mining fortune, not the social status. I love the woman who cried over her father's stolen artifacts, who had the courage to face down a husband planning her murder, who chose justice over fear." Akosua reached out and touched his face gently. "And I love the man who risked everything to protect me when I couldn't protect myself. The man who saw through Kwame's lies when I was blind to them, the man who kissed me not to take advantage, but to save my life. When they kissed this time, it was different from that desperate moment 6 months ago. This kiss was filled with choice, with mutual respect, with the foundation of trust that had been built through shared adversity and triumph." "So what happens now?" Kofi asked, holding her close. "Now we build something real," Akosua replied. "A partnership based on truth, respect, and love. A marriage that honors my father's memory by being everything my first marriage wasn't." 2 years later, their wedding was held not in the grand cathedral where she had married Kwame, but in the garden of the family mansion, surrounded by the people who had stood by them through crisis and recovery. Chief Inspector Asante walked Akosua down the aisle in place of her late father, and the ceremony was simple, authentic, and filled with genuine joy. Mensa Mining Corporation had grown beyond even Chief Mensa's original vision, with Akosua as CEO and Kofi as her partner in every sense of the word. They had established scholarship programs for deserving students who, like Kofi, had the intelligence and drive to succeed but lacked the financial means. The foundation that bore her father's name had expanded across West Africa, supporting education, healthcare, and small business development. But Akosua's greatest pride was in the integrity with which they ran both the business and their marriage, with complete transparency, mutual respect, and shared decision-making. On their second wedding anniversary, as they sat in the study where their love story had truly begun, Akosua reflected on the journey that had brought them together. "Do you ever regret that kiss?" she asked, smiling at the memory. Kofi laughed, pulling her closer. "Never. It was the most important decision I ever made, even if it was the most inappropriate way to get your attention." "It was exactly what I needed," Akosua replied. "A wake-up call from someone who loved me enough to risk everything to save me." Outside the study windows, the lights of Accra glittered like stars. But inside the mansion that had once hidden deadly secrets, there was now only truth, love, and the promise of a future built on the solid foundation of genuine partnership. The poor driver who had kissed a billionaire heiress to save her life had become so much more: a husband, a business partner, and proof that sometimes the most inappropriate actions can lead to the most beautiful outcomes when they come from a heart filled with protective love. Chief Mensah's legacy lived on not just in the gold mines and business empire, but in the love story that proved real wealth comes not from what you inherit, but from whom you choose to build a life with based on truth, respect, and unshakable loyalty. In the end, Akosua had gained more than she had ever lost: a true partner, honest love, and the strength that comes from surviving betrayal and choosing to trust again with wisdom rather than naivety. And Kofi had discovered that sometimes taking the greatest risk of your life can lead to the greatest reward: not just professional success, but the love of a woman who valued character over credentials and loyalty over social status. What an incredible journey from betrayal to true love. This story proves that sometimes the most inappropriate moments can lead to the most beautiful endings. From a desperate kiss to save a life, to a marriage built on truth and partnership. Love really can conquer all when it's based on genuine respect and shared values. Which moment touched your heart most? The protective kiss that started it all? The brilliant trap that caught the villain? Or the beautiful wedding that celebrated real love? Share your favorite scene in the comments below. If this story reminded you that true love is about partnership, protection, and choosing each other every day, smash that like button. Your support helps us share more stories about the power of loyalty, courage, and love that transforms lives. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our powerful stories that prove good people can overcome any betrayal when they have courage, wisdom, and someone who truly loves them fighting by their side. Share this story with someone who needs to believe that real love exists, the kind that protects, empowers, and builds rather than destroys. Sometimes the person meant to save your life comes from the most unexpected place. What story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Should we explore more tales of unlikely romance, justice triumphing over evil, or the power of loyalty to transform lives? Remember, true wealth isn't measured in money, but in the people who stand by you when everything else falls apart. Keep your heart open to unexpected love. And never underestimate the power of someone who genuinely cares about your well-being over your wealth. Until next time, this is your reminder that sometimes the most uncomfortable truth is exactly what we need to hear. And the most inappropriate action can be the most loving when it comes from a pure heart. God bless.